Hey everyone, welcome to the Closet Writer Chronicles. I'm your host Sangeeta, aka the Moody Marshmallow. This is part 2 of my conversation with Krishna Trilok. Krishna is a professional writer. He has authored the Indian fantasy novel Sharikrida and the official biography of two-time Oscar-winning composer A.R.Rahman. Krishna has also worked as a financial journalist and copywriter. He recently graduated from the Savanna College of Art and Design with an MFA in creative writing. You can catch part 1 on the podcast before listening to this one. Tune in. You wrote Sharikrida, you've also, worked as a journalist, right? And you've kind of worked as a writer in different capacities. You've also done like freelance work, I believe. And then, of course, the biography and whatnot. And, you went on to pursue a master's in creative writing. So I was just wondering, was this a conscious choice to kind of just keep experimenting? Or was this something that you just happened out of the blue that, oh, like today I feel like trying this, so I'm just going to go ahead and try it. And then it just kept evolving and was very spontaneous? Or was it something you kind of planned and you're like, oh, you know what, I really want to try different things, so this is how I'm going to go about it?
Well, like I said, like we had that interesting segment before about how, you have plans and then a million other things happen before you reach the end of that plan. It was much like that. The one thing that I did know is that I wanted to write. The one thing that I did know is that, I wanted to be a storyteller. That was the one thing that I knew I needed to get done. And everything else just sort of happened. Everything else just came my way. And I live my life with a very, very simple rule, which is never say no. I always believe in saying yes and asking questions later. Has that gotten me into some questionable situations? Absolutely. Some things which I should have probably said no to, but I wanted to just see where I would go. So I said yes always. So when I landed my first journalism job when I was in my second year of college, by that time I'd started writing and all of those things. I never considered journalism. I never ever thought about it. I had a lot of friends who went to ACJ and other places and knew that they wanted to be journalists, study journalism and all of those things, but I never had any such thoughts. But someone asked me, would you be willing to try it? And I'm like, sure, why not? It's a way to get some practice. It's a way to meet people more than anything else. It's a way to meet people in the literary world, and it sounds like a fun thing to do. So that's how it really started. And I've done a lot of journalism, actually continue to do it even, but now I write for some American publications about American pop culture sometimes. And I mean, even my second book, Notes of a Dream, is technically journalism because it's nonfiction, but it was just something that happened. I mean, so journalism happened like that. Then my first book got published, which was fantasy fiction, of course. Then I got involved in Notes of a Dream, which is completely different from fantasy fiction. It's as far away from it as you can get. Then I got involved with copywriting with different ad agencies. Wrote for the governments of Puducherry, government of Chhattisgarh. Created, marketing collateral for them, and all this different kind of writing, all of it just came from people asking me, hey, would you be interested in this? And me just saying, yeah, sure, why not? So to answer your question, no, none of it was really planned. None of it came from a conscious choice to experiment, and none of it came from saying, okay, I want to try this, let me go after this. It came from in the overall plan of saying that I want to be a writer and I want to meet different people in this field, just different opportunities and individuals coming my way and saying, hey, would you be interested in doing this? And me just saying, sure, why not? And looking back, it's much more eclectic than it seemed at the time, because at the time it was just not part of any plan. It was just going along with the flow. So I think it's just the one thing that for this segment, the only thing that I would say is whatever you choose to do. It could, we're talking writing here, but it could be anything. It could be academia. It could be um, um, it could be music. It could be any field you choose to pursue. My only nugget to share from my personal experiences is try not to say no to as many things as possible. Try to keep an open mind. Try to be interested in as many different things as possible, because you never ever know where what is going to lead. You don't know who you're going to meet. You don't know what experiences are going to open what doors, and you never know 10 years down the line, all of those experiences put together, what quote unquote portfolio it could become that's going to open more doors. Because it just, things snowball. Nothing can be looked at what it is in individuality. It's a collection of things. So and another thing to be kept in mind is, especially as a creative person, you must remember that many of the most brilliant creative men in history, it could be Leonardo da Vinci, it could be Steve Jobs, it could be Michael Jackson, it could be our own A.R.Rahman. All of them were people who were interested in many different things. Leonardo da Vinci we think of him as a painter, but he was actually an engineer. If you asked him what he identified as, he would have said, I'm an engineer. James Cameron, who's one of my favorite filmmakers, and of course directed some of the highest grossing films of all time and some of the most awarded films of all time, was a science person. Steve Jobs was building computers, but he saw it as an art, and he was very profoundly interested in art. Michael Jackson is a musician, but was a musician, but he was profoundly interested in spirituality. I think he had a library of many thousands of books which he read voraciously, and he was interested in all kinds of things. In fact, he used to witness brain surgeries and was very interested in medicine and diseases and all of those things, because these fields, these disciplines, they cross-pollinate. Something that you pick up somewhere is going to be useful somewhere else, if not immediately, somewhere down the line. So just be open. As I said, experiences, these are all experiences. So just be open and be interested in as many different things as possible. Trust me, it may seem unrelated, it may even seem boring, it may seem like a chore at the time, but all of it comes together and it opens up your world in ways that you cannot imagine at the time. But time will tell how that will influence everything that you're going to be. And I assure you of that.
Yeah, no, I completely agree, because I think even if I had to like just draw from my own personal experiences, I know I've been a part of like I think different fields at this point. And at some point in the future, you do realize how everything kind of ties in together in a very strange way. And then it kind of makes sense of why you had to do what you do or why you did what you did. So completely agree. But, again, having said that, you worked as a writer in different capacities, like I mentioned. What have been the most, I guess, challenging forms of, media that you've dealt with in terms of, say, copywriting or, financial journalism or fiction or nonfiction? What has been the most challenging for you? And what have you had most fun with working?
I will say actually the most challenging would probably be journalism, for the simple reason, even more so than, financial writing or copywriting or anything like that. Journalism in particular, because you are dealing with human beings, you are dealing with other human beings. For example, I'll give you a little story from Notes of a Dream, for example. And obviously it's the story of one person's life, and he has, out of pure respect, because I do respect him very much and I would never have done it any other way, I would never have let that book come out without A.R.Rahman's explicit approval, saying that this book is good to go. And for that, I needed to make him read the entire book so that he knew what was in it and wasn't going to be, not okay with anything that was there.
Mm.
And he was in Boston at the time, and I was in Chennai. And we had the release date fixed, could not be moved. Penguin had already started prepping, the stores and all of that for the books, and he needed to approve it. And I was like, he's not going to be back in India in time for us to, for him to read it and give us the approval, because obviously he has so many millions of things to do. Imagine reading like what was at that time a 700-page manuscript and give us approval. So I mailed him saying, what are we going to do? How are we going to circumnavigate this hurdle? And he said, okay, there's only one way to do it. I'll give you a time on every 2 days of every week for, I think, for a month or something like that. He's like, we'll get on Skype. This was before Zoom was a thing, so it was Skype. And he was like, you read it out to me, and I'll listen and I'll tell you what works and what doesn't work. So we did that every night, not every night, 2 nights a week. For him, for me, it was like early morning. I would sit and we would read page after page after page, and we would work through it. So those are the kind of challenges you face with journalism, because you're dealing with living people. You need to make sure that you're respectful of them and you get the story right, and you don't say anything that's going to offend or harm them in any way. So it's I would in fact say it's a romantic kind of writing in some way, because you're really dealing with the person, and you need to be very delicate, and you need to be very careful. And at least, I mean, like, I know there are some people out there who intentionally want to be, shall we say, a little harsher with their subjects. But I personally believe in handling people with care and handling personalities with care. So I'm always like, I always have my mink gloves on. So for me, I think that was the hardest, because how to get my writing, the kind of writing that I want out there, balancing it with what the quote unquote subject or client or whatever you call them wants to get, and making sure all of it is done on a very stiff timeline, because it could be whether I'm writing for the Indian Express or whether I'm writing for Penguin India. There's a deadline which I have to meet. I can't not make that deadline. So I would say that is a challenging one. Copywriting is fun and challenging in its own way, because you have to, like, of course, there's a client you need to make happy, and you have a huge amount of messaging that needs to go into very few words and all of that. But it's not as challenging, in my opinion, as journalism is, because it's more independent. It's less parties. It's just you and the client really that are dealing with it. And fantasy fiction, of course, is my favorite. It's my most fun, because there's nobody you're answerable to. It's just, you can do whatever you want. It's just you. So to answer the question simply, the fewer parties are involved, the more fun it is. Like in fantasy fiction, it's just me. In fiction and fantasy, it's just me. So I can do whatever I want. So it's the most fun. Journalism, there's so many parties involved. So it's more complicated to balance out that. So it's like living alone versus living with a family. Yeah, that's the only way I can put it. If you're living alone, it's much more fun. It's a lot more independence. It's a lot more, you do things on your own terms. When you're living with an extended family, there are more people you're answerable to. So it's more responsibility. It's as simple as that.
I love that comparison, honestly. I think it's a great way also, I think, to look at it. Yeah, I think one of the other things I really wanted to ask you is, you went on to do your MFA in writing from the Savanna College of Art and Design. How and why did you decide to do that, considering, professionally you were already at a certain stage, right, with writing, and you could have very well chosen to just continue working. So, why did you choose to kind of go back into a sort of academic route and, sort of pursue that? And has that been beneficial for you in terms of, developing your craft?
Well, there were three reasons. The first one was because I had started working when I was 13 years old. I never really had the college experience because by the time I hit my undergrad, I was already working as a journalist and all of that. So I would very often get called out of classes to do an interview. I would very often bail on plans, Saturday night plans, for example, with friends, because I would have a meeting with someone who could potentially be an agent or something like that. So I was working quite hard throughout my undergrad. So I never really had that college experience. And I really wanted to have that because I was like, if I don't do it now, I'm never going to do it. I wanted to know what it would be like to just be, somewhere and just have that fun of being a college kid. And I knew that it was better that I didn't do that in India. I wanted to do it somewhere else. So, and I had friends who had gone to the Savanna College of Art and Design and spoke very highly of it. And they were like, you really need to come here. It's such a creative zone and you love it over here. And I've met people from so many different countries and so many different disciplines, fashion, film, um, I don't know, designing for theme parks, interior design, all kinds of things. And it's been one of the most incredible experiences I've had in my life. And I have friends now from Peru to Japan, from Canada to South Africa. So just the sheer number of people I've met over here, I mean, incredible, incredible. The second reason was that I had written literary work. I had done journalistic work and I'd done literary work. But after my second book came out, I was starting to get offers to write for the visual medium, screenplays. And after a few looks at scripts and working with a few people, I realized that writing for the visual media and writing for the literary media are two very, 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 very different things. And I would say that because I'd spent so much time teaching myself, reading, and all of that when I was a kid, writing books came somewhat naturally to me. But writing scripts was something that I realized I needed a little bit of formal education on, because I didn't have the luxury of time to sit and really teach myself. I needed to do it fast. So I really decided that, okay, I want to go to school again, and might as well go to school for something that I really wanted to learn.
Yeah.
Though now after coming here and seeing all the different things that there are to learn, like fashion and animation, I really wish I could do it all. I don't think I have enough time in my life to do all of it, but I'm glad I got the chance to do what little I did. So that was the second reason, to learn something that I did not really know and which I wanted to get into. And the third reason was, as I said, I really want to expose our country's stories and culture to a global audience. And the easiest inroad to a foreign country is to study and start slowly working over there. It was just pure practicality. So I mean, like, now I work as a script reader for a company in Los Angeles, and that work only fell into place because I studied here and I worked the route and got a job because of that. I mean, there is an argument to be made that I could have been in India, applied, or come here and tried, used contact, something like that. But it just satisfied my other two criteria as well. So it was a combination of those. And I've met people here, teachers, collaborators, people in different cities around the world whom I wouldn't have met any other way, who continue to be collaborators and good contacts to have, creative contacts to have, who continue to help me in many, many, many different ways. So it was a combination of those three things. It was a combination of just wanting to go to school again, wanting to study writing for the visual medium, which is something I did not know, and also cracking into a new country. It just was the most viable route to come
Yeah.
into. So that was that it was as simple as that.
Is there something, are there any tips or points you think would be helpful for people to consider while kind of thinking about even pursuing a degree like this? Especially, I think in general, there is this whole debate of, do you really need to academically follow a route in, say, writing, because you do have universities giving out degrees in like Shakespeare studies and whatnot, but of course the sort of practicality of those degrees is in question, like even till today. And especially, I think, coming from a South Asian family and an Indian family, so to speak, where a creative career in general is not seen as a very stable place to be. Are there things you'd like to kind of maybe share in terms of what people in general should consider or think about while kind of thinking of pursuing a degree in, say, writing?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Writing, music, film, uh, art, photography, any of those disciplines. The first thing I would say is, please, please, please do not think that do not look at the courses as going to teach you. These courses are forums for you to meet and improve and find collaborators. It's Think of it as your dream world, professional dream world, thrown into an academic institution. Look at it that way. Um, ideally, um, and I was lucky enough to do this, so I can only speak for myself. But if you can, sort of start at least experimentally working on your own. I'm not saying if you're going to be a filmmaker, you don't need to win an Oscar. If you want to be a musician, you don't need to win a Grammy. All I'm saying is, if you've already started, maybe you worked as an assistant somewhere, maybe you've decided that you wanted to pick up a camera and make a few films of your own with your friends. Maybe you've um, been taking music classes ever since you were a kid, all your party class and all of those things, and you've actually, you've worked in that. I would say have as much real world experience as possible, because that's where you're actually going to learn.
Yeah.
That's where the learning actually happens. These things are much, much better thought when you do it, and every time you make a mistake, you're learning. It's every time you make something that's absolutely awful, you are learning much more than 100 of these courses can teach you.
Yeah.
um like i I look back at my first 5 years of writing, when I was writing in a notebook and all of that, and I look back that stuff and I cringe. But I'm like, okay, that taught me way more than my MFA ever taught me about writing, about how to build a world, how to set up a scene, how to create characters, dialogue, all of those things. That's where I learned. What the course does is, I came and I was able to find one other writers, out of whom I was able to pick the ones who really inspired me, who taught me things about myself, taught me things about the stories that I wanted to tell. But more than that, I found collaborators, I found filmmakers, I found musicians, I found set designers, I found costume designers, and I've worked with them, written the scripts for short films, for example, which they've produced. I've met other people through them. So think of these things as forums. These things are not. It's not like your MBA or your architecture or medical school or anything like that, where you come and they're going to teach you and there's a job waiting for you at the end of the day. That's not what it is at all. Please do not even think of it that way. And also, please, please, find your own voice before, because they can teach you a few technical things. For example, if I'm coming to school for screenplay writing, they can teach me, like, there's 3 acts to a film. They can tell me that this is the beat sheet, this is the flow of the story, and all of those things. But if you don't have your own voice, and you don't have your own ideas, and you don't have your own way of doing things, and you don't have your own vision, you're going to become slavishly attached to what other people have done. You're just going to absorb that formula that they tell you, and this is not math. This is not, you can't follow a formula to reach a solution. You need to be aware of the rules, sure, but you need to be aware of the rules so that you can break those rules. So I would say, ideally, develop your own voice, be clear about who you are, the stories you want to tell, or the work you want to do, and come over here so that you can understand what people have done before you, and you can understand what other people like you are doing. But don't come not knowing, having done nothing, coming and then just saying that you're going to learn from scratch, and then say at the end of the 4 years or 5 years or whatever it is, you're going to go and get a job in that field. That is not the best way to look at it. I would say work before, make all your mistakes, find out who you are, or at least who you want to be, come over here, meet people, improve yourself, and then go out and continue to make mistakes and continue to do what you were doing. This is just, like I said, it's a dream world. It's the professional world that you dream could be there, but is not actually there. That has been created for you in a very safe academic setting. So you enjoy that, and refine yourself, meet the people that you can meet, and you're going to meet a lot of weird people as well. But you meet the people that you want to meet, and then you move on. Look at it that way. Do not look at it as school. Look at it as sort of like an extended workshopping.
Yeah. No, and I think that's great insight, because I think a lot of people go in without really knowing what they're getting into, and they have a lot of other expectations, right, out of courses like this. So really helpful to know. You're an unabashed lover of fashion, and I've seen you, kind of post pictures on Instagram of, be it with, clothing or like makeup, endorsing skincare, and sort of like modeling for certain things and all. And you're very like happy doing it. And like, at least I can tell from a lot of those posts that, you don't really care about, the perception or what people are saying. You're just very happy doing what you're doing and putting out what you want to put out, and kind of just enjoying, certain aspects. I think first I want to know like how you got into the whole fashion thing of loving, clothes and styling and whatnot. And also if you were ever apprehensive about, I guess, being vocal about it, because, society, especially I think in a South Asian community, in India especially, it can be very, it can be a bit demeaning to, I guess, a man when he says that, oh, he is very into like, clothes and the way he looks, and it's considered like very feminine, and like, what are you doing? So have you ever had apprehensions about, even being vocal, or have you had to face like certain, I don't know, comments or trolls or whatever? So I think those would be questions I want to ask. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I love talking about this, and I'm so happy you asked, because so again, we'll take it in parts. My love for fashion, okay, it's actually something quite new. When I was actually, until just before I left India in 2019, I wasn't into it at all. I mean, I wasn't interested at all. And my mom and dad, my mom especially, extremely good sense of fashion. My dad too. Both of them have extremely good dressing senses. They have an extremely good eye for design. They both are fantastic interior designers. A lot of aesthetic, a lot of elegance in everything that they do, be it food, My dad's a great cook. My mom's a great. She's very good at uh, fashion, clothes, and things like that. She loves clothes. She reads all of the fashion magazines, and I was never interested when I was younger. I'd be like, she would buy Vogue, Elle, and all of those things, and I'd be like, oh, what a waste of time. But then again, it just shows how different things can lead to different things. There was it was actually writing that got me into fashion because I read The Devil Wears Prada.
Okay.
And I watched the movie, and
Yeah.
again, like I said, a strong story and a strong is
Yeah.
about strong characters that make you want to be more like them. And Meryl Streep's character in The
Yeah.
Devil Wears Prada was just such a strong character
Yeah.
that I was just saw her and I was like, you know what, she seems cool. I want to be like that, and that's where it started. So I just decided that and like I said, I think we're going to be drawing from everything that we've discussed for this one because I started getting interested. I mean, her character got me interested in this, and as I said, I'm a person who never says no. So I was like, let's give it a shot. Let's see what it's like. And I started slowly getting into it. In fact, I remember um, when it really hit me that, oh, okay, I should have done this a long time ago, and I am not, is when I went to, for the first time, I dressed up a little bit um, and went to Cherut at the ITC, the bar, and um, I think it was Amitash Pradhan, the actor from Velela Pattadari and all of those films. He saw me and he's like, finally started dressing nicely. And I was like, okay. I was like, thank you for acknowledging it, first of all. But yeah, I mean, like, you're right. I should have done this a long time ago. And I just realized that it was a world of expression. It was a world of um, just being able to. It was art. It was more
Yeah.
art. I mean, it was as much of expression as writing, and there was just a certain um, joy that it gave me. Putting together different wardrobes and all of those things that gave me a lot of happiness. And then a new avenue opened up after I came here to the US, and it was it was never something I really considered. But a lot of fashion students asked me to start modeling their clothes. A lot of beauty students started asking me to model their products. A lot of the university itself, I worked as a model for, and I just realized that I enjoyed it. I mean, like I never said no when they were like, "Do you want to model?" I was like, "Yeah, sure, why not? It sounds like fun." Performing arts students wanted me to act for them, all of those things, and I was like, "Yeah, sure, I'm not going to say no to any of this." And one thing led to another, and then slowly someone was like, in fact, it was one of my bosses when I was working one of the university on working for the university in one capacity, one of my overseers, really, not a boss, but an overseer. She was like, I have a friend, she's a photographer, and she needs people to do some really edgy things. Would you be interested? I think you'd be perfect for her because she needs someone with, I think the word she used was someone with a good bone structure, collarbone structure, and cheekbones and all of those things. So I was like, sure, what is it? She's like, why don't you just go and meet her and she'll tell you? And I went and met this woman, and she said, yeah, basically I just want to like slather makeup onto your face and make and wear jewelry and all of those things, and not much clothing will be involved and all of those things. Would you be cool with that? I was like, sure, why not? It seems like a fun thing to do. And she said, I'll pay you in cookies. And I was like, okay, absolutely then. And so she made me a box of cookies, and I was like, yeah, okay, I'm yours. Do whatever you want. And she we had a great afternoon together, like all kinds of, she put makeup on me, she put furs, jewelry, all kinds of things. And to be perfectly honest with you, I never even thought about things like masculinity, how it would be perceived. None of that. I didn't think about any of it. And then I saw the pictures and I was like, well, these look cool. They look really cool on Instagram. Let me just share it. I didn't think too much about it. I really didn't. And that is either indicative of the fact that this is something that genuinely didn't occur to me because it was just something that I didn't think about, or I was just being really dumb. One of the two. So um, I put on, and what was incredible more than anything else was how, I don't know if this is just a product of the times we're living in now, because it's just such a revolutionary time. The amount of support, from people, especially men back in India, the amount of support saying this is so incredibly cool. We wish we could do this. Some of them have in fact, but some of them are like, we can't do it. We don't have that kind of we don't have the personality to do it quite yet. But the amount of support was actually overwhelming, and I think I should be thankful for that. I don't think I've ever faced anyone who's ever said, "Oh, what is this?" or "this is weird," or "this is not cool," or anything like that. And I've always felt very empowered by it, by clothes, by makeup, by all of it. And I've never in any way felt, again, because I just see it as an extension of expression. I just see it as a way to, the more you get to know me, I can be a bit of a all over the place person. I can be a little, bit on the edge, have a few out there ideas, and can be a little bit of an overwhelming personality. And I feel all of this just captures who I am, and it's just putting out there. And I think a lot of people have just accepted it. This could be, again, I repeat, if I had done this in even like, anytime between 2011 to 16, 17, maybe it was a different story. But I think now 2020 onwards, and especially now in 2022, I think the world is just, especially India, is going through such a sea change in culture, and people just want to be, it's all about expression, embracing yourself, blurring the lines between very fixed parameters which were there early on. And I really think we could not hope to be in a better time and place for experimenting. And I'm very thankful to be in this time where you can be whatever you want, and people are so ready to love. I think in the 90s and 2000s it was cool to hate on things, but I think really now it's cool to be embracing and loving and accepting. So I think that's amazing.
Yeah, no, I agree that, things are definitely changing. People are a lot more accepting. I mean, of course, you still have the whole being woke, cancel culture thing happening. Yeah. I mean, I think that just goes without saying. But no, I mean, it's amazing and incredible that, you can be who you are unapologetically and, as authentic as you can be. And I think that's amazing, and, more power to you. But yeah, we're kind of now coming to the end of this interview, and we always end with these last two questions. So the first one being, what are your aspirations? What are you looking forward to in the near or even, distant future?
Well, I think what I'm looking forward to more than anything else is just the continuation of many trajectories we are on now, where I think, especially, coming out of the pandemic and all of those things, sure, the scars are there, but I think there's a lot of feeling that when nothing is certain, everything is possible. And that, coupled with people's ability to be so much more accepting and hopeful and positive for everything that's to come. And I just feel that It's strange because the hyper awareness that we have now of all things, it could be climate change, it could be a lack of tolerance, it could be all of the problems that we face in the world. The hyper awareness, it can be depressing, it can be extremely depressing. Mental health issues, all of these things, it can be extremely depressing to see how um, uh, all pervading some of these issues are. But the fact that we are so aware of it, it's incredible, because once you're aware of it, you can address them. I think that we are in a time in history where this awareness is leading to so much being done to address so many of these issues that we as a society and as a race face. And I think that's something that's as difficult as it may be in the short term. I think in the long term, it's going to lead to a much better society for all of us. And it's going to bring, it's just, and I think another incredible thing that I've realized, coming all the way across the world to a country and a city that is, after living all my life in Chennai, coming to another place and living is, and having the life that I have here is just proof of that. The world is becoming smaller and smaller. I mean, because of social media and the internet, we are all so connected. And I've met people, because of my line of work, I've met people from rural Idaho, from rural Alabama, Montana, places who have never seen an Indian before. And they talk to me and they're interested in my life, they're interested in my culture, where I come from. And it's incredible. I meet a kid from, Mississippi, who's never met anyone like me, and I've never met anyone like him. And we've grown up watching the same TV shows. We've grown up seeing the same movies. And it's just incredible to know how much makes us alike more than different. And I think we're slowly going into a world where, because of this amount of awareness that we have, we're going to see more and more empathy. We're going to see more and more similarities rather than differences. And I really think the world is going to come together and make the planet a better place. I truly believe that. So I'm very excited about that. I'm very excited for um, I remember when I first came to the US, and I grew up reading Jhumpa Lahiri and Chitra Banerjee and all of those people writing stories about how when they came to America in the 80s and the 70s and all of that, people would look down on them as, their food was different, their clothing was different, and the culture was different and all of that. And I come over here and they're like, please be different. Please, we want to celebrate differences. We want to acknowledge differences and embrace them. So it's not about, it's a beautiful time in which we can all be unique. That could be in terms of anything. It could be in terms of culture, it could be in terms of sexuality, it could be in terms of religious beliefs, whatever it may be. It's a time when you're being encouraged to celebrate what makes you different, and all the while still assimilating because of the many things that also make us similar. So I think that's something that I'm really interested in. And from a storytelling viewpoint, I think it's the best time to be telling different kinds of stories. This is a time when, everyone I meet is like, yes, we want to hear stories from India. We want to hear stories rooted in your culture. Let's talk. Let's have these conversations. Let's have people who look different from other people. Let's have people who think different, sound different from other people, all coming together and create absolutely new content. So I think we're in the forefront of really revolutionary change.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I know I can't wait to read or see what it is that you kind of come up with next, for sure. And yeah, last question. What is a piece of advice or learning you'd like to share with people? It can be creative, professional, or something, you've just kind of learned in life and you just wish people were more aware of.
Be open. Just the only thing I would say. I mean, be the editor of Vogue, Anna Winter. She had a speech. I won't say recently. I think it was 2015 or something like that. She delivered a speech at Oxford,
Okay.
I think it was at their graduation, where she said one of the biggest dangers really the facing people right now in the professional world and the academic world and all of those places is hyper specialization. There's just too many people who are saying this is the field we've chosen to work in, and it's that. I've
Right.
seen people like that even here in when I was in school. Um, People who said, "Oh, we're writers. We want to write, say, horror, and that's the only thing. We wouldn't want to see other kinds of movies or TV. We don't want to have conversations about astronomy. We don't want to have. We don't want to go for a hike because what is that? We're not interested in all of those things. We just want to write horror stories. That's all we want. We want to watch horror movies and we want to write horror stories. That's the most dangerous thing you can do, especially as a creative person. I mean, as anything, I think it's the most dangerous thing you can do because it's such a big world out there. There's so many things, there's so many people, and life, you only live once. Life is short. Not to shut yourself off to experiences and say that I'm not going to experience this or I'm not interested in that. I think I think you're really shutting a lot of doors. I think you forget your work, forget
Yeah.
what you're doing, forget whether you're creative, whether you work as a lawyer, an architect, whatever you may be. It doesn't matter what you are doing. It's irrelevant to me. What matters to me is you realize that you're a human being, and a human being, the greatest thing you can do in life is to have experiences. So just be open and be interested in as many things as possible. If you don't want to read about them, watch YouTube videos. If you don't want to watch YouTube videos, meet people. If you don't want to meet people, I don't know, travel, watch TV shows about it. Whatever you do, meet different people, do stupid things, learn as much as you can, get your heart broken, have have a good time, fall on your face sometimes, but just have as many different experiences as you can. That's the only thing I can say.
And on that wonderful and enlightening note, we have now come to the end of this interview. Thank you so much for being here, Krishna. It was absolutely lovely talking to you. I
Thank you
hope
for
you
having
had
me.
fun.
Yeah, I did.
Thank you. So that was my conversation with Krishna Trilok, ending this episode with a piece written and narrated by Krishna. I hope you enjoyed the show, and I'll see you next week with a new guest and a new chronicle to share. Talk soon!
So I'm actually going to talk about something. This is a combination of several little captions that I've written actually. So it's going to deal with something that's been playing on my mind a lot recently, which is basically time and going forward and um really just getting older and thinking about the past and wondering about the future and just the funny tricks that time can play. So I'm just going to start now, and here goes. So getting closer and closer to 30, but I'm lucky that I can honestly say getting older's kind of been working out for me. It's only ever gotten better every year. I mean that in every possible way. Experiences, interests, people gained and lost, perhaps in some cases. Excited as always for all that's to come. I have some sentiment for the past. I don't pine for it, but there are moments of nostalgia, elements and people that I miss, and things I wish I could experience or experience again. I also do tend to spend a little too much time thinking on the future, even though it's all dreaming and fear, and both are about as real as the other. I am guilty of this, even though I know from my limited experience that one's expectations of the future have very little to do with how things actually pan out. But I am trying, mind you, to experience the present to the fullest a trifle more. But then I also kind of think that living in the moment is only half of the effort. The rest is a healthy blend of cherishing what was and an awareness of what can be. Einstein believed the past, the present, and the future are all as real now as they'll ever be. None of them can quite exist without the other. So sometimes I do a better job of layering what used to be with what I want to be to create what I want to be now. And sometimes I don't, but I still try my very best.